Welcome back to another episode review and breakdown for High School Musical, the series, Season 2. And we're going to be talking about Episode 4 today. And something you may have noticed is I actually missed Episode 2 and 3. That's because school's been crazy right now. But today is my last day of school, so now going forward I'll be able to cover this stuff more often. But yeah. So definitely look forward to more series, weekly episode reviews in the future during the summer, especially High School Musical, the series. So really excited for this. I still watch the episodes. I just didn't have time to do videos on them. But anyways, guys, before we get into this, of course, spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the episode yet, let me know your thoughts on the episode down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump into this. So in the beginning of the episode, Nini actually stops by East High for just a quick little visit before she goes back to Denver. And this was a pretty interesting visit because, you know, obviously she reunited with everyone. It was a great moment and all that stuff, but it was over pretty quickly. And then Miss Jen went to go take her back to Denver, but then, oopsie, turns out her car, which, by the way, she named Bernadette, will not start because there's this huge, crazy snowstorm going on right there, which is insane. So then, because it's like all across town, the power at the school also goes out while everybody is there rehearsing. So that's definitely not great. I think they said there was like a foot of snow in the last half hour, so that's pretty crazy. But I'm used to stuff like that than where I live, but yeah, so everybody else is pretty much like panicking, but then Gina, I feel like this was really Gina's episode because especially in this scene, she just goes full survival mode. She's like, all right, go get waters, all that stuff. Go to I remember what she said, but she just went full survival mode here, and it was pretty crazy, but awesome at the same time. So I thought that was pretty cool. But we get some conflict here in this episode, especially, again, when it comes to Gina. She's a big character in this episode because, first of all, she and Carlos collide a bit because, of course, they're co-choreographers, but neither of them really want to be co-choreographers. They really just want to be the captain choreographer. So obviously they conflict there, but by the end they do make up and they decide, like, yeah, we'll be co-choreographers. So that's resolved pretty quickly and really isn't a huge role in this episode, but was still something that went on. But the big thing here with Gina, there really wasn't a huge thing in the episode, but just us as the audience can tell, full on Rena. If you don't know what that means, it's Ricky, Gina, it's their ship name. Really the whole thing with the fan base of High School Musical, the series, is Rini versus Rena. And should Ricky end up with Gina or Nini? And we get some Rena hints in this episode, because Gina is really acting like she and Ricky are just friends, and she's like, oh, it's just a joke we have and all this stuff. But she definitely has feelings for him still. That is very, very obvious. And then one thing that I actually think I missed, because actually when I was in the middle of watching the episode, my bed kind of fell apart on me, so I was kind of a little distracted, missed a couple parts here. But when I was scrolling through Twitter after the episode, I saw somebody say that she found out the chocolates weren't from Ricky, so I'm not exactly sure what that was. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you can clarify that, what that was. But that definitely seems interesting, because who else would they have been from? Was it Carlos? Was that something that was revealed there? I'm not completely sure, so definitely let me know in the comments below. But things are heating up there between Rena and with Nini over in Denver now. I have a feeling things are going to go, those two are going to get closer. So I'm definitely interested to see that, though, in the future. Then in this episode, we actually get some interesting stuff with EJ, which I was really excited for because I love the character of EJ. He was a great character in the first season, and he hasn't really done much this season so far, but he did have a fairly large role in this episode. But it was some sad stuff. He had some sad stuff going on in his life, because these first couple episodes he's been bragging about, like, oh, he's a senior, it's his last time with all these guys, and he's graduating, and he's going to go to Duke, and he's like 100% getting in. But in this episode, he reveals that he did not get into Duke. And it's huge to him because that's like a family thing, and he's going to be the first one in his family to not go to Duke. So it's really a big deal to him. So he's going through a hard time with that. But then when the power goes out, he actually runs into Mr. Mizara, who actually basically cheers him up and kind of inspires him by telling him a story of his own experience with something like this, where he wanted to get into Caltech, but then he failed at that, but then he ended up getting this job here at East High and did the robotics club and all that stuff. And it's kind of like, you know, this may not have worked out for you, but there will be something better waiting for you on the other side. And that's something we actually also see with Nini in this episode, Miss Jen, but we'll talk about that more later. So also here, while the power is out, Courtney actually texts Howie, who we met last episode, working at Big Red's parents' pizza shop. So she texts Howie and asks him to bring her notes, because apparently she has a test the next day or something like that, so she needs to study. So he shows up with her notes and pizza, because, you know, the power's out, so they need some kind of food. Plus it's nice and hot and warm, so that's perfect for them. So nice to see him return here, even though he didn't do much, but it's still cool. But now let's talk about the whole Nini thing, because this was also a big part of the episode, because like I was saying earlier, when Miss Jen went to take Nini back to Denver, the car would not start because of the snowstorm. So she does something very similar to what Mr. Mizara does for EJ, and tells her a story about her own experiences as well, with how she auditioned for the original Broadway version of Frozen, and she was close to getting it, but she did not get the role. But then again, she came out on the other side, got this job at East High, and you have to think that maybe things even worked out for the better there in this scenario. So Nini really thinks about this in a way that, you know, it really starts to bother her, because this whole youth actors conservatory thing is something that she's wanted to do, but now that she's actually doing it, she doesn't really like it, and she's not a fan of it. So we see later her contemplating what to do when she's on the bus later. But meanwhile, the power comes back at the school, so everybody's good there. But when Nini makes it to the train station, Ricky actually shows up, because he doesn't want her to leave, and he basically tells her how much he loves her and everything. But she's like, no, I have to do this, I have to go back. But then when she does get on the bus, we actually get, she actually does a song, which is actually kind of weird. I thought it was kind of weird how we only got one song in this episode. Usually there's like at least a couple, and it wasn't even until the end. But it was a great song though. And then once she's sitting on the bus, you know, this song is still going on in the background as like a voiceover. And then she basically realizes she doesn't want to do this. So she goes back home, and she shows up at East High. And she is officially back home, which I'm kind of surprised about, because, I mean, we all knew she was going to come back. It was a pretty obvious thing that was going to happen. But I'm surprised they did it so quickly. You would have thought they would have dragged it out more. But, I mean, I'm not complaining, because it is going to be interesting, though, because, like, all the roles in the musical have been cast. So is she going to get an extra role, or is she going to be an understudy or something like that? Or is she just going to be in the audience and watch? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and find out. But definitely another great episode of High School Musical, the series, Season 2. Again, this was episode 4. Definitely a shorter episode, but a very good one at that. So, guys, of course, let me know your thoughts on this episode down in the comments below. And thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on everything that goes on in the movie life.